3 out of 10 bats were fascinated to know that the average lifespan of an oak tree is 600 years.
5.752 bats out of 10 were elated to know that slugs poo through their genital opening and it spreads fungal spores all around the forest.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, get this. 10 out of 10 bats were astonished to hear that hammerhead shark, despite being a cold-blooded animal, have to close their gills as they dive to deep depths to retain their body temperature.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
11 out of 10 bats were absolutely astonished to know that 75,000 years ago there was a beaver the size of a bear living in North America, weighed up to 125 kilograms. What about that? Hello and welcome to 8 out of 10 bats.
Can you believe it? Hi.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. We're live here at the Dundragon Rewilding Centre in the Highlands of Scotland. We're going to be here for the next few days. It's a fantastic place. We've got our own teepee.
I know, we've got fairy lights. We're going up in the world. Oh, that's what I think.
Do you remember
anyway.
when we started SIBC and we were just on a mobile phone?
Yeah, I know, in the back garden.
And we got proper cameras, got a teepee, got a team.
We've got a team.
A team.
I know, it's a polished production.
Oh.
Or at least we hope it will be. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, we've got some amazing wildlife stories coming to you live every night between Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on YouTube. The first week, as Chris said, we're here at Dundragon Rewilding Centre in the Highlands of Scotland. Week 2, we're at the British Wildlife Centre all the way down in Surrey, talking a little bit about urban wildlife. It's going to be pretty good.
Lots of contributors, lots of young people, young filmmakers, conservationists, campaigners, and do keep your eyes on the chat because we're going to post all of their tags there and we'd very much like you to follow them. Now, if you were a firm fan of the SIBC, the South Isolating Bird Club, you know that one thing we ran was Skull of the Day. So every day we'd post a picture of a skull from my rather extensive collection and we would ask you to see if you could guess what it was. Well, look, I posted one this morning and I have that very skull here. What a beauty that is. Just a last minute twirl if you didn't see it on social media today. Last minute chance to see if you can guess what that is. Well, who got it right, Beast?
Well, a few people actually got it right, but first of all, lots of people said duck. A bit ambiguous about that.
A duck that size, I wouldn't go out. I certainly wouldn't go near the river, honestly.
I know, it'd be quite impressive, wouldn't it? Someone said eider duck. Fiona McKenna thought it could be an eider. Ooh, not quite right. Terrible impression, I'm very sorry. Edward said mallard.
Too big for a mallard.
It's a bit too
big for a mallard.
But the people that got it right were Kevin Fairclough, we've got DJ Stan, Kaylee Kimberley and Chris Ganaway.
Mute swan. Mute swan, yes, look at that. I mean, when you look at the skull, you can see it does have a very much a duck, goose, swan-like upper mandible there. No doubt about that. Big eyes here. But then look at this part on the front of the head here, because this is clearly a male swan, a cob, and this is its knob. And that was formerly black before it passed away and then entered my collection of skulls. Ooh. Post another one tomorrow. I'm going to make them more tricky. Mute swan. Yeah. I thought that was an easy one to start with. I've got to say, tomorrow, make them more difficult.
You've got some really hard ones, so look out on Chris's social media for that first thing tomorrow morning. Now, of course, we've been out scanning the reserve for the very best wildlife that lives here at Dundragon, and we have been absolutely spoilt because there's some remarkable species. But when Fabian Harrison, our producer, was wandering along the path earlier on this afternoon, this is what he saw, and it took us all by a bit of surprise. This is a slowworm. Now, of course, it's late October. You'd expect to see slowworms, a legless lizard, out towards the spring and summer months when it was warmer in temperature.
And it was frosty here this morning.
And it was frosty, which is a little bit bizarre, but it was sunny during the day. So I do have to ask myself, perhaps this slowworm, before going into hibernate...
I think it's on its way to hibernate.
Making the most of the sunshine, going back in.
If I was a slowworm at Dundragon at this point in time, I'd be making my way to hibernate.
I'd already be sleeping, quite frankly, and be ready to wake up in March again when the temperature was a bit kinder.
Fantastic stuff. Really good to see that.
Yeah. Right, well, should we take a look at what we've got coming up over the next 2 weeks? Because hold on to your hats, it's going to be a great one.
What a spot.
I know, God.
So good here, it
brilliant.
really is. Not only is it full of wildlife, but it's also very beautiful too. All of the trees at the moment, or the birch and the beech trees, have got that lovely golden colour that they do up here at this time of year.
Yeah, really beautiful early in the morning when we've been getting up and seeing that inversion, that mist come down. It's been a really, really gorgeous scene. Now, it's not just us two that you're going to put up with for the next 2 weeks. In fact, it's probably a good thing because we'll start bickering with each other. Well, bantering is the best terminology. Well, yeah, maybe. It's also inviting 2 amazing other new presenters onto the scene as well. We've got Christina Sinclair, marine biologist, and Indy Green. Come on in.
Come on in.
Come on
Hello.
in, you two. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. How are you both?
Very good.
A bit chilly, but yeah, doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Excellent. What have you been up to then, Indy?
All sorts, the usual antics. Now, there's been a lot on social media about how long it will take me to mention goshawks on the show, and goshawks
Okay.
there, I've said it in, 5 minutes?
Well, it's about 4 seconds actually, but since you
Expected.
got onto the bales, yeah, fantastic.
Exactly, and I've actually got, just to spoil you a bit more, I've got a goshawk picture for you.
Ooh.
Now, this was taken back home in Sherwood Forest. I mean, a juvenile flying across the field, heading to roost in the evening.
Is it one of your photos?
Yeah.
It's nice, Indy. Look at that backlight on the wing there.
I know, and flying with a sense of purpose.
I know, exactly. And when I actually took the picture, I zoomed in straight away, and on the beak, there is actually a little bit of blood. So that is goshawk has recently sunk into something very, very
The
juicy.
avian terminator.
Exactly.
Oh, you know,
Don't be
it
a
calls for
goshawk.
only one thing, Indy, I'm afraid. We've got to start there.
Oh, absolutely.
A bit of that. Oh, there's
I
no
can't do
pressure.
that in shorts.
Oh, no, you'll damage your legs. You don't need scabby thighs after extreme goshawk rubbing. What about you, Christina?
I mean, that is like stiff competition. I love my birds as well, but I have to admit my particular passion is marine species, marine environments, and basically everything that lives along the coastline. So I've brought in the most psychedelic anemone you've ever seen in your entire life. Take a look at this. I mean, would you believe that was around the UK?
It's beautiful, isn't it?
That was
Stunning.
in the Firth of Clyde. I took that photo, which is about 45 minutes from
You took the
Glasgow.
photo as well?
I took the photo.
Beneath the surface?
Yep, absolutely. It is
That's
a dahlia
sad.
anemone. So it's a really common species of anemone that you'll see around the UK. You'll see them rock pooling, you'll see them in shallow waters if you go snorkeling. And they do vary in colour. They come in some lovely kind of red, green and browny colours, but I've never seen one like this before. It caught my eye from metres away and I just had to dive down and snap this shot. So
Amazing.
I see your goshawk, you know, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to, you know, knock
No.
on the goshawk, but, you know, this is also
It's
pretty
quite tough,
incredible
actually,
as
in a
well.
different way. I mean, that is
Yeah.
very psychedelic. I think I imagined something like that in the Ministry of Sound in about 1992. To be quite honest with you, what an extraordinary thing.
It's
Absolutely. And
remarkable.
we have all sorts of these things living around our coastlines.
It looks like it's been coloured in.
Yeah, and I promise I didn't alter the colours. You know, I did like my little tinkering with shadows and things in the edit, but no, it's all real. That's exactly what it looks like in real life.
And of course, we want to see other people's pictures.
Oh yeah, absolutely we do. So yeah, we've been already receiving some amazing photos and videos and all sorts from you guys, but we want to see more. So please feel free to share your wildlife encounters with us. You can use the hashtag 8 out of 10 bats. You can email them directly to us. You know, that'll be in the tags. I'll be in the comments, you can find that. You know, keep them coming in. We can't have enough of them. Please make sure you're getting those to us.
Okay, all the details, of course, are in the chat. Now, we couldn't start a programme like this without some cartographical reference. I'm talking, of course, about a map. Where are we? You need to know where we are. So we've got our map of the UK over here. I'm going to put this green dot down. Now, if you're in London, that's where you are down there. Pretty much in the south of England. If you're in Glasgow, then you're somewhere, where are you if you're in Glasgow? You're in somewhere in here like that, that'd be quite good. But we are all the way up here, north of Loch Ness, on the shore here. We're about an hour away from Inverness here and an hour from Fort William at this Dundregan Rewilding Centre. It's 16 square miles on the estate here. They've had it since 2008 and they've been planting as many trees as possible. They're trying to recover this landscape, and on that account they've got a very large tree nursery, and we'll see a bit more of that later. Why are they based here? Well, that recovery is all about this. Look at it. It's coming back, the ancient Caledonian forest. They've got some of that here. They've got some juniper forest. They've been doing some, good counts when it comes to all the species. 4,000 species of animals and plants they've found here already. And of course, it's constantly on the up. And that's the landscape, that barren landscape they're trying to put an end to by getting some trees onto it and some life back into it. Not just wildlife, but people too. And on that account, they've got an amazing new centre here. All sorts of educational facilities and a superb cafe. Vegan hot chocolate, vegan cake. I mean, I'm scoring it high, 9.9 so far. Could get to a 10 by the end of the week. Superb. So plenty more to come about Dundragon and about rewilding as a conservation tool. But we thought we'd introduce another element to our programme. Friend of SIBC, friend of Countdown, Susie Dent. Each day, Susie is going to give us a wildlife word of the day. Now, we're going to reveal the word at the top, or Susie's going to reveal the word at the top, and then we'll give you the answer at the end. There are no prizes, it's merely a little quiz. So let's go for the first Dent word of the day. Over to you, Suze.
So my question for you today is, which nocturnal animal inspired the word urchin?
Urchin, yeah. Well, I remember being called an urchin by the man who lived in number 48 Cornwall Road when I was a kid, because I used to nip through his garden, jump over the fence and get into the woods where all the foxes were. And he would describe me as a horrible little urchin. But what was he referring to? What was the origin of that word, I wonder? And of course, Susie will be giving us the answer at the end of our programme. Without further ado, though, let's get into some really good wildlife. We've reached out to all of the filmmakers that we know so that we can bring you some fantastic behaviour, some rarities and, of course, some beauty. First up, Steve Whistling Joe Everett. And again, you can find his details now in the chat, and I suggest that you follow him. He's an entomologist. He's really into the Hymenoptera, the wasp and the bees, and we're going to start with some of his bees tonight. But we wanted to break the mould when it comes to doing the voiceovers here. So we've got Jasmine Qureshi to do it. Now, she's a bumblebee ambassador, but we think that she might be the first ever non-binary trans woman to do a wildlife film voiceover. What about that? Over to Jasmine and Steve.
Brush that pollen out of your eyes and say hello to the most extraordinary little creature on the sandbank. This is the pantaloon bee. Aren't they gorgeous? The pantaloon bee gets its name from these wonderful big brushes on their legs. Now, these incredible legs have two functions. On one hand, they're used as large sweeping brushes for digging. She's using these legs to dust and brush the sand out of the way as it excavates an incredible architecture of mazes that exist beneath the surface. The tunnels they dig can be anywhere between 8 and 60 centimetres deep. On the other hand, those legs are used to collect pollen, acting like baskets. The thick hairs keep the pollen close to their body. She'll collect heaps of pollen. This looks like it's from ragwort, flying back and forth from her burrow again and again. Because deep in that tunnel, in each chamber, she'll lay an egg atop a pile of golden yellow nectar. Once this egg hatches, the larvae will munch happily upon the pollen until one day it pupates into a beautiful, fully grown pantaloon bee. The sandbank is a busy place, and you'll often come across other characters. Some harmless, and some you'd rather not bump into. Meet the satellite fly, also known as the bee burglar or shadow fly. These weird, queer flies wait for the bees' burrows to be left unattended, and then scurry down them at speed. Down there, they give birth to live young, which will feast upon the bees' hard-earned pollen and even eat the bees' eggs. And now, our pantaloon has a shadow. She's been followed. But she knows the fly's there. She bides her time, peeking out to see if her shadow has moved on. She can't wait forever, and she must eventually leave the burrow, exposing it to the fly. Her shadow scurries down the tunnel as soon as she leaves, but re-emerges shortly afterwards. Something's amiss. The burrow is empty, no eggs, no pollen. Elsewhere, our pantaloon bee returns to her original burrow, laden with more pollen. It seems she was aware of the fly's attention and led it to a decoy burrow. Adaptation, deception, staying one step ahead. Another generation of pantaloons will successfully emerge next spring.
look at that, the pantaloon bee. What an adorable insect.
Good. Absolutely
Gorgeous.
Amazing. And like we were saying earlier, you can find all the details of how to follow them in the chat now. Thank you so much, Steve and Jasmine. That was such a great story.
They've done an amazing job with that. Brilliant narration, brilliant footage there, really inspiring. And of course, we can't talk about bees without talking about their equally important cousins. Now, Wendy, I was working the other day and a lady came up to me and she said that whenever on a nature show there is an item about wasps, spiders, slugs, things like that, she fast forwards it. And then she asked me, how do I get to love these animals? And the first thing I said to her, well, watch the segments. And then you will actually understand and appreciate more about these incredible animals. So if you're out there and you're watching this, I hope you enjoy this next bit and learn to love our friends the wasps a little bit more.
So there we go, we've got ourselves a challenge, get people to love wasps. And I've had a lot of very, very cool experiences with lots of different species of wasps, one of which is the black-banded spider wasp. Now, this is a species I see a lot down at home in Sherwood Forest, and it has a very, very interesting life cycle. So black-banded spider wasps, you can see here there's a paralysed spider there which has been caught by the black-banded spider wasp, having it injected its venom into the spider. Look at that, you can just see it's patrolling, and once it's paralysed that spider, it then digs a hole in that sandy soil.
Can we just have a moment of appreciation for how gorgeous that, you know, that wasp is? I mean,
So
look at that, the
stunning.
black body, that red, oh, it's gorgeous.
And then just carrying that spider away. Notice how it carries it into the hole right now. Look at it just going backwards so the legs can fold in. And what it's doing, once it's carried that spider into the hole, it will then lay its eggs on that spider. And once the black-banded spider wasp larvae hatch, they will then slowly eat away on the spider after the wasp has, of course, filled in the hole. And then the following spring, they will emerge as, like you say, those beautiful adult black-banded spider wasp. Isn't that cool?
I love a parasitoid. Really gets my kind of gruesome curiosity tingling. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. It's dark, but really cool.
It's very good.
Yeah. But wasps are fantastic and they come in all different shapes and sizes. Across the UK, there are 9,000 different species, and these range from big to small. And earlier on, when I went out the front door, there's an apple tree growing, and I saw some of the biggest wasps that we had. This is a European hornet snacking on some apple that is fermenting. And at this time of year, they're really into high sugar content substances. They'll go for nectar, they'll go for sap. So an apple will do just the job. It's quite big, isn't it?
Yeah,
quite cool.
It's very good, really, really good.
I like a hornet, I do, I'm partial to a hornet. But we have to go to the micro scale as well, which is now I want to introduce you to Sloan Tomlinson, who does these amazing photographs of really tiny wasps. So now this photo here is of a wasp belonging to the genus Polynema, also known as fairy wasps, and they can be between 1 and 2 millimetres in length.
Look at how small that is. I'll be honest, what I'm most amazed about this picture is seeing a close-up of a pencil. Look at all the layers of graphite.
Oh,
how
indeed,
cool
look
is
at the
that?
wasp.
But then, of course, look how small the wasp is compared to
I
it.
know.
Absolutely amazing.
And of course it's a sharpened pencil too, so
That's
it's really
true.
narrow on that side. The next up, we've got this photograph of the genus Diaprid. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Now, there's an estimation of 4,000 species belonging to this genus, but most of them are not known to science. Now, this individual was just under 3 millimetres and possibly has an association to mushrooms.
Relatable.
Relatable. Next up, we have this photo featuring lots of different types of wasps. Now, my pronunciation on this may be off, so do correct me. Chalcidoids, which are a whole group of wide-ranging worldwide wasps, 500,000 species estimated, but we only know about 22,500 species with science. Now, this is the smallest one, not pictured here, but the smallest one in that group is 186 micrometers, Indy. Do you know how small that is?
Go on.
Smaller than some bacteria.
How does something function that's that small?
I don't know, but it's crazy. Some of these wasps, you even need a microscope to be able to even see them, let alone identify them. So they're really hard to be able to identify at that level.
That is ridiculous, but
which
amazing.
Is very cool. Which is very cool. Now, of course, when we think about wasps, we think of the common wasp, something we see around our picnic tables in spring and summer. But we do get a bit of interaction at this time of the year in the autumn, and there is reason for that. It's because as the cold temperature drops, their nest obviously cannot maintain the level of activity. Lots of those individuals sadly die off, the nest eventually dies off, and the workers that are remaining are desperate and disorientated, trying to find any scraps of food that they can.
Exactly. So as Meg said, there's often a lot of people who are not massive fan of wasps when they're coming around when you're having a picnic. But if they're given an alternative, they will leave you alone, as proven here. So this was set out by our camera operator, James Stevens, who put a chip with some ketchup and some chicken on. And the wasp kept coming back and forth to this brilliant food source and completely ignored any other options. So again, just proving that if you give them another option, they will leave you alone. So a very good tip for anybody who is a bit bothered by wasps. But of course, they're absolutely amazing and we should really appreciate them. They're brilliant predators, they're brilliant pollinators, and they're so good for humans and wildlife. So we should all love wasps.
Totally. You know, we talk about bees with pollination, but we have to talk about wasps too, because they play a critical role in the ecosystem. And that diversity of wasps, you can't tell me that you didn't think they were beautiful and fascinating. You're never going to look at wasp in the same way again.
We hope not.
No, that's a good thing. Now, throughout the course of this 2 weeks, we are going to be joined by the famous Lucy Lapwing and some of her props, and also by James Stevens, one of our wonderful camera operators. But today we're going to hear a feature from Lucy Lapwing, and she's made a rather creative prop for us.
I have indeed. Thanks, Megs. I'm going to jump straight in today because it is autumn with one of my favourite fungi, and this is a fungus that ticks all of the boxes. It is gross, it's obscene, it's clever, and it's fascinating. So take a look at this. Meet the stinkhorn, Phallus impudicus. What a scientific name. Now this is 2 different photos we've got here. That is the form that you might come across the stinkhorn when you're having a walk in the woods. On the left here is what is known as the stinkhorn egg. It's also known as a witch's egg. It doesn't look like much, does it? On the right, this is what the mushroom becomes. Now that's a little bit of a development, isn't it? You can see what I mean hopefully here when I described it as obscene. Now I've got here a prop to hopefully demonstrate how this works, the fabulous Phallus impudicus. Now, as I said, when you're walking in the woods, you'll come across a rather nondescript egg like this. Nestled in the leaf litter, it doesn't look like much. If you were to take that egg and cut through it, perhaps as a cross-section, have a look inside, it's a little bit more complicated. So you can see here there's some goopy, green-looking stuff and a little bit of a structure as well. Now, this is going to turn into the spore mass, and this is going to be something that I'm going to demonstrate in a second. Now, these eggs can develop quite quickly, over 2 or 3 days. They'll swell, they'll get tighter, and eventually they'll start to rip and erupt. You can see here the skin will split. Now, as this egg swells, the skin splits, it'll tear open like this, and from the depths of the egg, the stinkhorn will emerge like so. Now, it does look quite obscene, doesn't it? That name, Phallus impudicus, scientific name, does actually mean shameless phallus, and hopefully you can see why. The top of the mushroom here is covered in this green goop, this sticky kind of gooey stuff that's known as the gleba. Now, that has 2 functions. First of all, it absolutely stinks. And second of all, it's full of the mushroom's spores. Now, this is where the fungus gets really, really clever. If you think about relationships between plants and insects, you often think of things like bees and butterflies and really nice smelling flowers. Well, fungi have had a really clever adaptation here and gone for a whole other group of invertebrates because quite a lot of insects are attracted by stinky smells. Now, we got sent this amazing footage here by John Walters on Twitter. This is a time-lapse of a stinkhorn that is erupted, and you can see that sticky, goopy gleba is being scoffed by flies over a number of hours. Those flies are visiting, they're eating that stinky stuff because it represents and it imitates the smell of rotting carrion of meat, which is what a lot of flies are attracted to. And you can see they completely clear the head of that fungus quite quickly. Now, the clever thing is, obviously, as they're walking all over that, scoffing all of this gleba, all of this gets taken away. Oh, I'm going to lose it. And carried around the woods. Now, on those feet, those flies land on different surfaces, on the woodland floor, on branches, on leaves. They're spreading those spores and helping the fungus spread itself. And you can quite often see aggregations of these rather handsome mushrooms, particularly around badger sets, because badgers tend to be quite a little bit messy. They have latrines, feces, sometimes dead badgers. That attracts a lot of blowflies, and those blowflies might just have been recently feasting on a stinkhorn. So hopefully, if you're having a walk in the woods this autumn, you get to meet one of these glorious creatures. Now, hopefully you won't eat in your tea and I've not put you off your dinner. If so, I apologise. We're going to go on to something a little bit more wholesome now. We've got a video here from James Shooter, who's been travelling around Europe looking at lots of different rewilding projects.
I'm James Shooter, a photographer and filmmaker, and and for the last 10 years I've been working for a rewilding charity in the Highlands of Scotland. Like so many others out there, I'm a huge fan of the wildlife on our doorstep, and throughout my career I managed to enjoy some truly awesome experiences, whether that be mountain hare preening, black grouse fighting, red squirrels jumping, or even Atlantic salmon leaping. You can have some knee-rubbingly good experiences with our British wildlife. And our landscapes are pretty stunning too. Roaring rivers, white sandy beaches, and even impressive mountainscapes to boot. There's something for everyone on this little old island we call home. That said, I've always been greedy for more. More habitat, more diversity, more life. And whilst there's much to celebrate in the UK, there's also much to improve. And that's where rewilding comes in. In a nutshell, rewilding looks to restore nature at scale by kickstarting natural processes and allows the complex web of interspecies relationships to play out. Sometimes, truth be told, with a step into the unknown, at least for us humans. With that desire for more nibbling away at our resolve, sometime last year we decided to go and chase it. By we, I'm referring to myself, my wife, our 2 little uns, and our rescue pup Ty. We sold our house, quit our jobs, bought a motorhome, and decided to travel the continent to discover Europe's wild places. I teamed up with the pioneering NGO Rewilding Europe to produce a podcast as we travelled round. I'll be visiting the inspiring initiatives fighting back for nature and meeting the passionate people on the ground. I was determined to capture their passion for the Rewild podcast, and if we could get a few people listening, then that could help to spread a little bit of hope around the world. And we all need a little bit of hope right now. There's some amazing work going on. In the south of France, the team at Tour de Valais are restoring coastal lagoons by reconnecting them to the sea, improving conditions not only for the rich bird life here, but also threatened fish species like the European eel. In Belgium, Naturepunt and partners are working to reverse years of historic abuse to the natural hydrology of their landscapes in order to establish a vast network of swamp forest, perfect for black storks and beavers. Whilst here in Denmark, bison, red deer and European elk have been brought in as natural tree trimmers in order to re-establish the open landscape of Northern Europe's largest raised bog. One argument against rewilding that I hear come up time and time again, particularly in the UK, is that it means the removal of people. To move nature in, you must move people out. Well, that's certainly not the experiences I've encountered, or those that I've interviewed. Quite the opposite, in fact. In the Iberian Highlands, a vast area between Madrid and Valencia, the region is known as Empty Spain. It has a population density similar to that of Siberia. Farming has always been tough, wildfires are on the rise, young people are leaving for new opportunities in towns and cities, and as a result, rural communities are falling apart. Rewilding here is still in its infancy, but it's already offering up benefits to local people and the services on which they rely.
And by bringing back people, by reactivating the economy of these areas, people are going to see a benefit. And tell you, I came back here with my wife and my kid, he's 2 years old. I'm moving to a small town next year. They have in the school only 7 kids. 7 is the limit. If one kid leaves the school, they have to close the school. So by me coming to this village with a kid, they are so happy. Now they have 2 extra kids, so they are not in danger to close the school, you know.
Across the border in Portugal, the rewilding team at the Greater Coa Valley are working hard to improve habitat connectivity for Iberian lynx and wolves. By working alongside farmers, they're building trust and fostering better coexistence. They're gifting livestock guarding dogs to sheep farmers, and have even set up a deal to make sure those that are willing to live alongside predators benefit financially.
The work that we do with the farmers to protect the animals, it has a cost, right? So we cover the upfront costs of the fences or of the dogs, but a dog lasts 8-10 years, so they will have running costs with these measures to improve the coexistence with wildlife. So we do have a partnership with Wildling Shoes, whereby they purchase the wool from sheep, from farmers that have these good coexistence practices, and they buy it at a much better price than they could get elsewhere, because wool is not currently a very valued product here. So that is actually a direct income, direct benefit to a farmer because he is doing something that is wildlife friendly.
These relationships aren't always easy to foster, but time and time again we find that concessions, compromise, and finding common ground are vitally important to achieving progress. And to be honest, what other choice do we have? Our life support systems are blinking out, Climate change and biodiversity loss are knocking at the door. It's time to well and truly get on with it. Despite the mounting pressures, I am feeling much more hopeful having seen the progress being made. And the good thing is, we seem to be truly turning a corner in both action and ambition back in the UK too. In southern England, pioneers like Nep Estate are showcasing the richness of life available on our lands, and at breakneck speed, going from farm to feral in just 20 years. A landscape which is now considered one of the best places in Britain for breeding birds. Back home in Scotland, both Cairngorms Connect and Afric Highlands, two truly extensive tracts of land, are restoring mountain tops, Caledonian forests, peatlands and rivers. Yes, we're up against it, but the tide is turning, momentum is building, and action is increasing. The appetite for rewilding is growing, and there's reason to be optimistic, but we all must get greedy for more. Lots more.
What an amazing film there from James Shooter. He's a great friend of ours, but also a fantastic filmmaker and podcaster. His podcast is called The Rewild Podcast, and you can check that out on streaming platforms. But what an adventure to go out with your family and explore all the amazing rewilding sites across Europe. A brilliant thing to do, especially with your dog. That looks like a lot of fun. Very envious of James getting up to all that. Now, of course, we're here at Dundregan, and as James's film represented, it's all about collaboration between organisations and on a wide scale too. So over in this direction is a very special tree nursery, and every year lots of seeds are collected from this area, from Dundregan, but also Glen Affric, taken to the tree nursery to there be grown and then replanted in safe areas. Now, thousands of trees every year are grown here, and an army of volunteers then take out off onto the hills to plant them. And one of the key projects is all about aspen, which is Scotland's rarest native tree species and its only native poplar. Now, aspen is a really special plant because it really rarely produces seeds, but since 2020, Dundregan have been able to do that and plant them all here. Now, this is a variety of different trees. You can see the saplings have taken root. They're starting to grow, starting to establish themselves. And here you've got a really mature birch forest, a common native tree, but a vital part of the ecosystem. And this is what it's all about. It's all about natural regeneration of ecosystems. It's about letting nature take control. It's about holding our hands up, saying, you know what? Actually, we're just going to let you do our thing with your thing with a little bit of support. And that's the key about rewilding. It's about people as much as it is around wildlife and landscapes too. To find out a little bit more about Dundregan, but also the wider initiative, earlier on I went and met up with Stephanie Keel from Afric Highlands. Wow. What an amazing view. I always think Glen Affric is like the picture perfect postcard of what Scotland should be everywhere.
Yes, I would agree with that, yeah. I think Glen Affric is one of the best examples of Caledonian pinewood, as it should look probably in many areas across the Highlands. And we've got obviously the best example of it right here in front of us now.
Of course, Glen Affric is a piece of the puzzle, but it's part of a wider initiative called Afric Highlands.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about that?
The Afric Highlands is a 30-year initiative to try and restore ecosystems at a landscape scale. We're looking at around 200,000 hectares with around 50 different landowners. We're covering the area from broadly the east coast to the west coast in the Highlands. We've got charities like Trees for Life, the RSPB, the Woodland Trust, the National Trust for Scotland. We've got obviously Forestry and Land Scotland, who are managing Glen Affric itself and a few other areas of woodland as well. But the remainder are all private landowners.
Sometimes when you mention the word rewilding, historically, people have felt a little bit threatened by that, I guess because they didn't understand what it truly meant.
Yeah, many people still are here in Scotland in particular. So I think it's important to understand that sort of what rewilding for us means. And rewilding for us means the restoration of ecosystems. So what is at the heart of all of this is try to bring the ecosystem back together, because every ecosystem has 1,000,001 little parts. And if you take too many of them away, the whole thing starts to kind of shift and fall over, and then it's no longer resilient and stable. So trying to bring back individual bits that are missing, or trying to regulate a few bits so that it can actually start regulating itself again. That's the main aim for us here in the Afric Highlands.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back thousands of years, you have that giant Caledonian forest which expanded all across the Highlands, and we're looking at a remnant of that here now, which is so ancient, going back thousands and thousands of years.
Absolutely.
Rewilding isn't about taking away land from people, it's very much about including people within that story, within this space.
One of the things we're trying to do is basically help people rewild themselves a little, because I think many of us have actually completely, or at least to some extent, lost a connection to nature. And we think of us people, as humans, as different and, you know, special and maybe more important. But I don't think we are. We are absolute part of this. Everything we eat, everything we use has come from nature at some point, sooner or later. It's not just a resource, it is our habitat as well. And I think that's really important also for people to understand and basically make themselves aware of that again, that we're not separate.
You feel that when you stand here.
Yes.
You know, you feel that you're part of it, you feel that kind of connection come back.
Yes.
And it's important that we reharness that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, it's good, isn't it? I'm quite envious of your job around here, looking at this every day.
Well, not every day, there's plenty of days at the desk as well, but you know, there are days here, obviously, and then it's like,
breathe.
Breathe, exactly. Breathe and be, I think.
Clearly there are a lot of good reasons to put trees back into the landscape, encouraging biodiversity, of course. And then there's carbon capture. Over a period of time, they'll build up all of those carbon back into that environment. And then there's resilience in that environment. Plant trees on the hills, they'll hold up the water. And here in Scotland over the last couple of weeks, there's been some terrible flooding. People have lost their lives, their livelihoods, their homes. It's been absolutely desperate. And the science tells us there's no ambiguity about the fact that these extreme weather events are being exaggerated by climate breakdown. So it might surprise you to know that on September the 27th this year, the UK government granted permission for oil extraction from the Rosebank oil field. Now, it's the largest field that hasn't been exploited in the UK. It's about 80 miles west of Shetland. The excuses they gave were, well, they wanted to make sure that we had plenty of energy security looking into the future. It would generate jobs, apparently, about 1,600 jobs. But there are no jobs on a dead planet. And when it comes to energy security, would it really offer that? Well, a small part of it is owned by Ithaca Energy, UK, but the vast majority is owned by Equinor. That's the Norwegian state energy company. And when that oil comes up from beneath the sea, it will be put on tankers and taken to other parts of the world to be refined and then sold at a market price. So there's no energy security there at all. It's not surprising, therefore, that this decision was controversial. Before it was made, as many as 50 MPs and peers from across all of the parties asked the government not to do it, informed by the advice that was given by the International Energy Agency. Our own Climate Change Committee have said we've got to keep the fossil fuels in the ground to be able to make an effective transition away from our dependence on those to renewables and meet our net zero targets. So they've made that decision. We could be going to hell in a handcart. What can we do about it? Well, we still have the democratic right to protest in this country, and that doesn't mean that you need to go out and get arrested. You don't have to glue yourself to anything or throw paint about. There are plenty of things you can do, and I would urge you to go to the chat and start following Stop Cambo. Look at that website. There are plenty of things you can do there to democratically complain to our politicians that we want a better outlook for our future. And then there's a Greenpeace petition. More than 291,000 people have signed it. Again, it's in the chat. Please think about signing that. And then lastly, you could go to nonewoil.com and download these posters. And we prepared one of these for each of our principal political parties in the UK, and we're asking them to think about this as they put their manifestos together and make sincere pledges that if we vote them into office, they will not continue to subsidise the fossil fuel industry and they will not allow any more drilling. They will put in place a just transition towards those renewables, investing those communities that need that transition to work. So please stand up, exercise your voices for you, your children's future, and for that of life on Earth.
We have the solutions to the climate and biodiversity crises. They're ready for us to pick up and roll with them. And fortunately for us, one of them is highly charismatic, highly comedic, but also has the best chewing sounds in the animal kingdom, hands down. Since their official reintroduction back into Scotland in 2009, beavers have weaved their way back up our rivers and into our lochs where they belong. Now, in 2019, the Scottish Government granted them protected species status, which sounds like a wonderful thing, and it is, but there was a catch. Now, if a beaver, as we know, beavers cause massive landscape changes to any area that they move into.
So, you got a bit of a sound issue there by the looks of it.
Technical issues, here we go. So, what was I saying? As we know, beavers cause massive landscape scale changes when they move into an area, and sometimes they're not wanted in a new area and they can't be managed. Now, unfortunately, if this happened, the only mitigation for that conflict between humans and beavers, the only option that landowners had, was to apply for a licence to legally kill them. Now, this obviously caused outrage. In 2020, 87 beavers were legally shot in Scotland, an estimated 20% of the population at that time. And as of course, this caused outrage across the environmental community. But thankfully, after a successful legal challenge launched by Trees for Life, a relocation scheme was brought in 2021. And as a result, the first successfully translocated beavers made their way to Argotty red kites to Tom Bowser and his family. And as beavers do, they have been getting busy. Now, I'm very fortunate to live close to Argotty, and I've been able to go and visit and film these beavers on a couple of occasions. And I have to say, I mean, it's one of the most relaxing and peaceful and just enriching wildlife experiences I think I've ever had. Beavers are nocturnal and they don't have very good sight, but they do have incredible hearing. So if you want to go and see a beaver in the wild, you need to get there early before they're active, and you need to sit and you need to wait. And that's exactly what we did. We crept up to the beaver pond at Argotty and we waited. And after a little bit of time, we started to hear their munchings and their crunchings. And they are loud. They are so loud. I couldn't quite believe it. I thought one was right next to me, and it turned out it was over on the other side of the pond. And I mean, just look at them. They're just absolutely gorgeous. And we were really fortunate to see 2 generations of beavers at that time, the original adults that had been introduced, and then their kits from last year, their teenager kits. But it got better than that. We had their kits from this year. This was only the second time that they had been seen this year emerging from their den. And you look at the size difference. They are brand new kits, maybe only about a month old or so. So this was kind of towards the end of the summer where we got to see them. The kits are normally born sort of in May, June time, and this was late July. I mean, just look at it. Look at that face. It's just absolutely adorable. I'm not going to use the C word. But these beaver kits, you know, they didn't seem that young, you know, from their behaviour. They were already munching away on trees. They were caching actually a lot of trees and a lot of vegetation, getting ready for the colder months coming in soon. And you know, they're like I think lots of different species. These beaver kits also wanted to have a little bit of fun as well. So this was towards the end, just as the light was starting to get low, and this one emerged from the water. And I was like, well, what's it going to do? What's it do? Oh, and then it gave us a little bounce. And then another little bounce. I was still sat there with my camera. What's it about to do? And then it splashed back into the water. It was an incredible way to finish off that evening experience. And, you know, the beavers have only been there for not even 2 years yet. And Tom and the rest of the team at Argotty Red Kites have already seen incredible benefits to their land just from the reintroduction of those beavers. And hopefully, you know, we will see more of them relocated across Scotland. We are already seeing them reintroduced to the famous Loch Lomond, and hopefully soon we might actually see them at our biggest national park, the Cairngorms, as well. But of course, it's not just Scotland that beavers are being relocated and reintroduced to. We're now going to hear from Kabir Kaul, who is going to tell us about reintroducing beavers to London.
Horsenden Hill is a beautiful slice of the countryside in Ealing. There's so much here. There's woodland, there's wetland, there's wet woodland, there are canals, there's a lot over here. To the west of the hill is Paradise Fields, where over the last few months, conservationists have been hard at work preparing something very unique. The Ealing Beaver Project is a collaboration between Citizen Zoo, Ealing Wildlife Group, the Friends of Horsenden Hill and the Beaver Trust, with funding from Ealing Council and the Mayor of London's Rewild London Fund. Now, beavers have already been introduced to London. They were introduced to Enfield last year and they bred just last week, so that's really exciting. But this is a markedly different setting. The surrounding area is much more urban, with a retail park, a motorway, an industrial estate, residential areas, and with that, no shortage of human neighbours. And for me personally, I only live 20 minutes up the road, so this is really exciting for me too. These beavers will be bringing so many benefits to both the natural and urban environments over the next few weeks, months and years. And later today, I'm going to be speaking to Sean McCormack and Elliot Newton, two people who have been instrumental in bringing about this historic reintroduction. Elliot, Sean, thank you. This is amazing. Huge congratulations. I first wanted to ask you about the beavers in the community. Now, both of you are involved in amazing projects that rewild different areas of London, restore nature in different areas of London, but also involve the local people. So I wanted to ask you both, how are you going to engage the local community with these amazing beavers?
Yeah, I think if I start on that, you can see today the amount of people that showed up, and it's been an incredible community project. It's been a collaboration of 4 different project partners. We have got people involved from the very beginning, before we even applied for a licence, by doing a public consultation and seeing the attitudes towards beaver reintroduction. And then we've just had a phenomenal volunteer effort on site, haven't we?
Oh, it's been absolutely incredible, Kabir. I think the nature of this being in an urban landscape, there's so many people, and you know, with the Ealing Wildlife Group, who do have so many incredible volunteers, Citizens Zoo, we've got some volunteers, Horsenden Hill, they've got loads of volunteers, so we came into this project with almost armies of volunteers who wanted to support the project. And not only that, beavers are quite exciting, right? So lots of people have been drawn to the project to be involved with such an exciting and pioneering project.
Yeah, we couldn't have done it without our volunteers.
That sounds fabulous. And Sean, we were talking earlier, you'd mentioned that there's already been quite a lot of community involvement in this, especially around the preparations for the site. So I was wondering, what were the preparations that were made for the beavers' arrival?
Yeah, good question. There's been so much work gone into it, and we got the licence in January of this year, so we were on a deadline to get all of the habitat works and fence clearance and everything done before the birds' nesting season. So we just got armies of volunteers in preparing the site, clearing historic litter, and then really importantly doing the baseline monitoring of what wildlife was already using the site, so that we can prove the benefits of beavers down the line.
And Elliot, these beavers are going to be living in Paradise Fields. They're going to be making themselves at home for the next month or so and enjoying the space that they're now living in. What are the kinds of benefits that the beavers will bring to the natural and urban environments?
Yeah, absolutely. So beavers have the incredible term of, as it is known as, an ecosystem engineer. And what that means, they can transform the landscape. So the most incredible things that they do, they create these complex wetlands, and that's by building a series of dams. And that improves the ability of the land to hold water. So by holding more water on the land here and slowing the flow down, that means in areas like Lower Greenford, which is sort of next door to the site here, we can reduce flood risk to that area and help it be more resilient to things like climate change with increased weather events that we'll see in the future. So they can be a really important part of that picture. They can also improve water quality by the way in which they filter the water, and also by creating these amazing myriad of complex wetlands, they'll create a whole host of habitats for a range of species. And let's not forget, we're in the midst of a biodiversity crisis at the moment, as well as a climate crisis. So beavers can help to create these incredible living landscapes, and doing it in an urban space like this is just incredibly special.
Yeah, it's equally about rewilding urban communities and showing the benefits of having nature on your doorstep, even in the capital city. I think it's so important.
It'll take a month or so for these beavers to settle in and truly call these fields paradise. But bringing them here has been a really inspiring community effort. If more of government, experts and locals work together for our wildlife and cities, then I'd hope that efforts like these can be replicated across the country. Now, I'm optimistic that while these beavers will be digging their channels here at Paradise Fields, they themselves will also act as a channel between urban communities and urban nature in Ealing. And in time, this reintroduction will reconnect residents with wildlife.
What about that? Beavers back in central London.
Pretty good, that.
It's fantastic, isn't it? And it's great to see Kabir. He's a great friend of ours, a great friend of SIBC. So thank you so much for that going out and reporting on that, Kabir. Also, I have to thank a few other partners. I have to thank Citizen Zoo, the Beaver Trust and Ealing Wildlife Group as well for that phenomenal work about getting that incredible animal back into an urban environment. More excited about that than anything, I think.
So good, yeah, absolutely. Go follow all of them. Thank you so much, Kabir, good friend of mine. Really, really good stuff. Now, we'd like to introduce you into something new. Welcome to the cache. Now, this is a collection of all our brilliant nature treasures. Some people like to hoard clothes and all sorts of other stuff, but we like to hoard nature treasure, and it's all for free, isn't it? Look at it.
Yeah, and you have to go out on adventures to get it as well, which makes it that much more fun. So we've got lots of stuff here. We've got skulls, we've got conkers, pine cones, we've got other different things, shells, mermaids' purses, shark eggs, and feathers too. But we have a bit of a competition for you. And if you're lucky enough to be the first for us to see in the live chat, you could win it yourself one of these limited edition 8 out of 10 mugs. Now I'm doing my very best hand model impression here. Now there are only very few of these. I think there are only 8. So actually, if you get your hands on one of these, you're very lucky. But I think we should maybe start this competition off on an easy one, as it's episode 1.
I think so. Okay,
Yeah?
what are we going to have? Let's
choose.
go with this one. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, nice.
Yeah?
So here we have a feather of some description. But what is it? There's a very nice barring all the way down it. Nice sort of, dare I say, a reddy brown tinge.
Oh, Indy, you're being very kind.
I know. That's quite dangerous. Hopefully some of you might have figured out by now.
Being very, very kind. So if you think you know what that feather is, put it in the live chat now, and the first person that we see to get the right answer will be sent literally this mug, potentially. And it has been used with hot chocolate, vegan hot chocolate, but we'll make sure we wash it before we send it out to you. Now, of course, we've got this amazing cache here. There's some amazing treasures, but we were just talking about beavers. So, Indy, have you got anything beavery to bring to the table?
I absolutely do, and this is my contribution to the cache. This is a beaver stick that I collected back down at home on the Idle Valley Nature Reserve, where beavers have recently been reintroduced. And I collected this with my mother. Hi, Mum. And you can see all the lovely beaver markings where they've been scraping along all the way up here, and you can see where they've been chipping away on the base just down here as well. And it's not just that, we've also got some beaver chips, a very, very valuable collectible item. You can just see, again, the teeth marks and the shavings all on there. Very, very nice. That one's really good as well. I've got so many of these in my house. Oh,
I don't have
honestly,
any.
I've got a pile. It looks like I've been cutting down
some
some
trees.
trees.
Post?
We'll see.
Okay.
But I think the prize item, something I don't have in my house, I don't know if you have, but look at this. This is beaver poo.
Now that I'm getting
Look at that.
And I didn't expect it to be kind of as red and maroon. I'm imagining it comes in more shades, but this one is quite red. And you can see all the kind of the vegetation, obviously, as a large herbivore that it's been munching on in that specimen.
Exactly. I'm sure more shades are available in different countries, but there we go. Really, really nice.
More shades of beaver poo. Anyway, moving on from that, you've had some great things here, but I've got to contribute my own thing to it. Here, I have the skull of a beaver. Now, when you're looking for skulls and things like that, one of the key things to identify is it a herbivore or a carnivore? And that's something you can tell by looking at this gap. In between the incisors and the molars, you've got this huge gap here. It's called the diastema, and it enables the animal to move vegetation around in its mouth, so it's better able to chew it. But you can't talk about beavers without talking about these big bad boys in the front. These are, of course, the incisors, and they're coated in this really orange enamel. This enamel is much of a harder substrate than anything else. It actually gets its colour because it's got iron within it, and it stops it, it protects it from acidity and enables it to really gnaw through the wood as it does so to build its dams and also to feed on woody-like plants. But what's really cool about the beaver tooth, and a great example is with this bottom part of the jaw, is that the root of the beaver tooth doesn't just stop here, it goes all the way down. Because to gnaw on something as hard as wood, you're obviously going to wear down your teeth eventually. So it needs to be continuously growing, and I can represent that here because this tooth is a little bit loose. And look how it comes up. You can see, sat in nicely, nice bit of tooth there, but look at the root coming out. Oh, a bit of a wobble there, coming out. Look at that! How cool is that? Oh, beaver
That's
tooth.
so good.
I don't have this in my collection. We borrowed this off a very kind ecologist called Dan, so thank you very much, Dan. We will give it back to you. We won't put it in our pockets, I promise.
I might, but no promises. So good. So obviously we can learn so much about everything we find out in the environment, including so much stuff that we've got here. But another really good way to learn about the environment is from books. And Chris is going to run us through a few of his books of the day. Take it away.
So here we are, book of the day. We've been talking about the state of our planet today, so I thought I'd offer this one, and you're going to say, well, of course you would, because you wrote it with your colleague at the BBC, Andrew Cohen. This is the book of the recent series, Earth. But I'm showing you this one because I just want to show you this photograph. That's our planet. Look at it. It's the only one we know of in any known universe with life on. It's absolutely precious and fragile. And what this book is all about is the deep history of this planet. All of those events that have, conspired to throw, enormous amounts of trouble at life, but life has come through and survived. And when it comes to climate breakdown, I think you can't go anywhere better than this. This is Hot House Earth by Bill Maguire. Bill is a scientist. These are the facts in paperback form. This is not something you read in the newspaper. These are the facts. So if you really want to know what's going on, this is what you need to head towards. And then lastly, if you want to do something about it, I'm going to point you towards this book by Andreas Malm, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Now, it's not a guide to blowing up pipelines. It's a discussion about the protest movements that have run historically and are running now to make sure that we can have a democratic input when it comes to change. He's a philosopher, a Swedish academic. It's well worth a read. What about that? Those are my books of the day.
Very good. I've watched the film of that book. It's really good, actually.
Really? What, the
Recommend
pipeline
it.
book?
Yeah.
Okay, what about this one? Have you read this yet?
I've had a peruse.
You haven't even read
I've had a little scan.
Oh, you've had a scan.
I've had a little gaze.
Honestly.
Do you know what? It is pretty beautiful. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yeah, I think we better move on.
We've got a couple of quizzes to revisit. First of all, Susie Dent's word quiz. We need to figure out who won, who managed to actually get the right answer. Did you guys have any ideas? Where did urchin come from?
It's something spiky, I guess.
It's got to be, right? I mean, I'm biased. I'm immediately thinking it's got to come from an urchin, right?
Well, sea urchin. Yeah, I mean, you'd
but that's
think
not a nocturnal animal, though, is it? That's the trouble.
Of course.
Come on, then. Susie.
Right. Reveal all, Susie.
So, the answer to which nocturnal creature inspired the word urchin is, of course, the hedgehog, because an urchin was originally a hedgehog. It comes from the Old French hérisson, and it explains the name of the spiny sea urchin. And at some point in the 16th century, people decided to give the name urchin to the poor, ragged children they passed on the street. We're not completely sure why, but maybe it's because their dirty, matted hair used to stand up on end, so they looked a little bit like a hedgehog.
Hedgehogs.
Hedgehogs.
Obviously.
Should have known.
Yeah. Can I tell you guys something?
Go on.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of people got it right.
Did they?
Like a lot.
Ah, well, that puts us to shame.
I think we might be out of a job soon.
I don't feel quite as bad now. That man in number 48 Cornwall Road used to call me an urchin when I was a kid, because obviously we had loads more hedgehogs then. And I probably did, when I was never brushing my hair as a kid and it was all sticking up. Look a bit like an urchin.
It's a bit of a compliment.
It was a compliment. I feel, I should apologise on behalf of young Chris Packham to that poor man whose fence I kept kicking over.
Well, at least it was to see foxes, so that's pretty good.
Indeed, indeed.
Now we have one more competition to announce the answer to. Obviously, the winner gets this fantastic mug, if I do say so myself. Double-sided, red on the inside.
Used for holding vegan hot chocolate.
Or what other hot drinks are available, just to put that out
And we
there.
won't wash it, actually. We'll send it like this, so it's authentic.
No, we will. I promise, we will. We will wash it.
I'm not sure they're dishwasher-proof, Beast.
Okay, well...
I got them really quite cheaply.
You're not selling it, Chris.
Sorry,
you're not selling it. So the answer who got this right for this beautiful feather is Kerry Ford. Now, well done, Kerry. This will be put in the post to you as soon as possible. And of course, the answer is a red kite.
Red kite.
So well done to everyone that got that right. Indy was quite generous with the clue.
I know, the red tinge. Whoopsie
Beautiful feather.
It is gorgeous,
Really
isn't it?
nice.
Really nice one. But it's not just mugs that we have available. We've also created our very own pin badge with the 8 out of 10 bats logo. Now, it's not available yet. It's still in production, but we will hopefully have some to show you soon. This is what it looks like, though.
Very stylish.
Right, so you can pre-order these, and the website link is obviously in the chat. Like everything else this evening, do go to that chat. For all of the books, for instance, are listed in the chat, and you can get them from responsible booksellers. So do follow those links there, and then you can pre-order those. And at the end of the series, if they're ready,
I hope so. Soon, you will receive them.
We'll
if you
be
order them.
posting them out. We'll be posting them out. But we are coming to the end, I think.
We are coming to the end. Do make sure to send us all your questions, your wildlife photos and videos, because we really would love to showcase them on 8 out of 10 Bats on social media and on this live show as well over the next coming weeks. So get busy, use 8 out of 10 Bats hashtag.
Now, we were wondering how we might end our programme. We decided to be really brave and bold.
Sorry.
Comedy. We thought what we do is challenge each one of us to tell a joke with a wildlife theme to it to end the programme, all right? And because we're all cowards on this side of the bales, Christina's going first. So, Christina, you have the privilege of telling the first 8 out of 10 closing Bats joke.
It is a privilege, but I am so sorry. So, it was quite a topical joke. Gonna keep it short and sweet. You ready? Hedgehog. Why can't they just share the hedge? I mean, come on. You laughed.
Oh,
It's shocking. Edinburgh Fringe winning joke.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
right. Well, on that bombshell, we'll finish this evening and see you again on YouTube tomorrow night at 7:30 for more 8 out of 10 Bats. Lots of young conservationist campaigners and practical conservation in action, and of course plenty of wildlife too. We'll see you then, and I'll be getting a very expensive joke book, I think, before I plunge into mine tomorrow. Right, good night.
Good night. See you later.